Good afternoon, friends and participant. I, Sunil Semwal, organizing secretary of this event, welcome all for this final day of this event. The event, International Training and Intensive Program, the theme of this event is opportunity and R&D ecosystem and tech-driven startups. We have started event on 20th June and today is the final day of this event. The event is organized by Tulaj Institute and Tech Counselor. This event is co-organized by Krishna Institute of Medical Science, deemed to be University, Maharashtra, and event is sponsored by Tulaj. Oh, sorry, Tech Council. Oh, I'm really sorry. TCube 3 and Uttarakhand Technical University. We have we have our industry partner Yuana Tech and Craft, Swachh Neer, Kaviraj Foundation, and Vodhik Venture. Till now, we have lot of eminent speakers in their field. We have several CEOs or co-founder of startups. We have academicians like Dr. Manoj Panda. We have CEOs and founder like Dr. Rajkumar Haldar, Madan Kanala sir. We had several other like Vinay Chaudhary sir, Ajit Yadav sir. We have several eminent speakers in this event, and today we have with us Dr. Jayant Pawar. Dr. Jayant Pawar, PhD in biotechnology, specialized in nanobiotech from Bharatiya Vidyapeeth, Pune. Mr. Jain is currently holding the position of application scientist at Terra and research associate at Krishna Institute of Medical Science. His area of interest is nanobiotech, microbiology, nanomedicines, and nanosystems, polymer nanocomposite. Dr. Jayant published more than 20 research articles in journals and different conferences. Dr. Jayant has three patents, and Mr. Jayant is mentor of the DST Inspire Science Program. Now, I am welcoming Dr. Jayant Pawar for his talk. Jayant, sir.
Okay, thank you, sir. Thank you, Dr. Sunil Sembwal, sir. First of all, I would like to thank all the organizers and the co-organizer and all the sponsors for giving this opportunity. I would like to thank everyone here. Um, I've been listening this. I've been listening this particular program. I have gone through all the lectures which were conducted in last 1 month, and it was really very nice initiative has been taken by the Tulas TechU and Tech Counselor. Um, I would like to share my knowledge and ideas about the possibilities in nanotechnology-based R&D for agri-tech. We'll also discuss a few challenges and opportunities for the startups in this particular domain. Um, let me share the screen first and continue that one. Okay. So I hope you can see this screen where I mentioned this international training program is on opportunities for R&D ecosystems and tech-driven startups. With this beautiful theme, I would like to add from my side, especially in the domain of agricultural technology through nanotechnology tools. I always
Jain sir,
believe that.
sorry to interrupt.
Hello,
Can
hello.
you put the full screen mode on?
Okay,
Yeah, Jain sir, can you put the slideshow mode on?
wait. Is this fine?
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. Good to go now.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Fine. So I always believe that our agriculture is the development in the rise of a despot of human civilization. It is not a new thing. We have been doing this. We have been working on this particular domain from our civilization, and it was started. So, civilization is a complex human society which shows cultural and technological development in group. You see, if you see in particular in many parts of the world, early civilizations formed when people started living together in urban settlements to fulfill the needs of each other, so that the survival value of a human being has improved over other life forms in the climax community of the ecosystem. In this context, the early civilization arose first in lower Mesopotamia, followed by Egyptian civilization along the Nile River, and Harappan civilizations in the Indus River Valley. But it was after 1900 BC only the Sumerian civilization was reported to have community life and predominantly started agricultural practices for sustainable food throughout year. Something around 1200 years ago, our hunter gatherers ancestors basically began trying their hand at farming. Initially they were using the tools like the stones and the uh, uh, wooden things, right, up to that bronze era. So they were using these materials for the farming. Okay, on they realized that they can also use some wild animals for the farming, right? So from then onwards, the agricultural field is actually witnessing development in all aspects, especially for the development of product, yield, their quality, then obviously their applications in various things, right? I mean to say processing and all. It will all comes under this particular development part. So, if you see the second point, that bygone days of the agriculture, I want to take you. Sorry, I want to take you to the origin or the history of the agriculture, where I can always see that agriculture is a science or a scientific art or occupation concerned with the cultivation land, raising crops, and feeding and breeding some raising livestock. So all the livestocks, all the crops, right? Then all the practices which are associated with the irrigation, fertilizers involvement, and all other aspects of the agriculture will come into this. Beyond days of the agriculture, if you see the importance to get sufficient food for all the members in the community, they did not rely on a natural sources anymore. So it was not consistent. So they obviously started growing wild varieties of the crops like peas and lentils, like goats and wild animals. Also, they took into their life, and it is a backbone of our economic system. If you see, so agriculture is not only provides the food, but raw material, but also employment opportunities to very large proportions of the population nowadays. Right? Okay, if you see the old methodologies here, this centuries later, after this Sumerian civilization came into picture and they started doing the farming and all, the method they used after century later, they switched to farming full time because they understood the potential of full time farming and breeding both animals and plants, creating a new varieties and breeds. They just started this kind of work along with the farming. Eventually, they migrated outward and spreading farming to another part of the world, especially in Europe and Asia. They intelligently used many tools made of stones and the bronze and the wood along with domestic animals for the farming. Currently, if you have been using modern machines, equipments and techniques for better output from agricultural domain is actually a result of industrialization is actually the result of modernizations of the techniques which are coming into the agricultural domain. Then one more aspect of this agricultural history is the trades. If you see the trades is a basic economic concept which involves buying and selling of the goods and the services with each other basically. So as I said, the earlier farmers lived in the fertile crescent, especially this region belongs to Middle East and assumed to form a homogeneous group that traded and intermingled. This swapping farming tools and tricks. This mm, but this currently this trade is not what do we say limited to just buyer and seller, but some modern techniques like artificial intelligence is actually coming into the way, and we have a great opportunities for the startups to trade for the agricultural produce where we can use this modern day methods, right? But of course, there are certain challenges in this particular agricultural methods, traditional agricultural method, I would say. The annual UN report found that a climate variability affecting the rainfall patterns and agricultural seasons. So that extreme climate conditions like drought and the flood are among the key drivers behind the rise in hunger. Okay. One more point I would like to add in this agricultural history is the food security, because we usually produce a lot many things, uh, but farmers, especially the group of people, those who really don't know about the cutting edge technologies, and they really don't take that as a tool to develop their to polish their methods. They are actually facing this problem of food security and agricultural product security. The alarming sign of the increasing food insecurity and high level of different forms of malnutrition are a clear warning that there is a considerable work to be done to make sure we can protect our food and other agricultural goods for our community. Right. If you see the current requirement of agriculture is the arable land, trained manpower, irrigation, agrochemicals, and fertilizers. This current requirement, arable land and all these trained manpower, pre-harvest and post-harvest intelligence is also missing, and we need that. Logistic is also a current requirement for the agricultural domain. The good quality storage, the distribution chain is very essential if you want to develop as a country through the agricultural economy. And the weather that monitoring is also essential part of this agricultural domain, because weather conditions are actually affecting the agricultural sector most, right? So suddenly the focus has changed from decreasing availability of the farming land. If you see, the population has increasing, right? So that decreasing availability of the farming land and unpredictable rain and the groundwater availability and urban migration of this labor is actually creating a lot of problems for the traditional and the conventional agricultural practices. The flaws on the production, post-harvest and post-harvest management, preservation, and all this stuff is amplified in this climate change. Okay. If you see the rapid adoptions of current age technologies like IoT, modern agricultural practices, which would give visibility to this crucial aspect of the agriculture. So multiple agri-tech startups have stepped up to offer innovative and what do we say, customized solutions at affordable cost to tackle various challenges of this sector. So for this multiple agricultural startups, no, we need to provide such atmosphere or environment for growth of this kind of wages. So agricultural technology, if you see, this is the problem. And if you want to give solution to these problems, then you need to seriously think about some advanced technologies into this agricultural sector. So that is where this agri-tech came into picture. So basically, to offer this innovative and customized solution of personalized solutions at affordable cost to tackle agri challenges, we have to like mention that I have already mentioned that aspects of the agri tech here in this particular slide. These aspects are IoT, smart farming, precision farming, robotics and automation, vertical farming, right? So all these different domains we have to help agricultural sector to cope up with this problem. So agri-technology is nothing but the amalgamation. It is an amalgamation of science and technology. So scientific knowledge we need. The technology, if you understand the science, then you can actually think about the technology where it is missing. You can add that and try to get the things done, right? So it is an amalgamation of science and technology. Yeah. So all these aspects which I have mentioned on the screen are associated with the agricultural technology, and to basically offer this personalized solutions, as I said, to tackle the challenges in agricultural sector, we have a various aspect which can be used to grow more food from less space in less water, replace manual labors with the robots for planting or picking of crops or for distributing fertilizers or a number of things that we usually do on learning. All these things, engineering background people definitely understand this, and this can be utilized for the betterment of agricultural sector, I would say, right? So to understand more about the soil or growing conditions, we can use all such technologies to allow that business to be more profitable, efficient, and last but not the least, environmental friendly, of course. Okay, fine. Then if you see here, so before I conclude this particular slide, I would like to tell you that why we are going for agri-tech. What is the necessity? Because we have been doing agriculture from to 12,000 years ago, right? We have been doing it, but now it is time to go into another domain called agri-tech to improve the yield and to give the food to everybody in the world, right? The reason behind that is, as I said, the population of the world is increasing, tremendously increasing, and the agricultural land, that arable land, is decreasing because we have used that land for some other purposes. So the consumption is more and the production is less. Is the basic problem here, and we need to address that. So I would like to take you to that particular scenarios where we can understand what exactly the status of agricultural land is. So is the global land distribution, if you see, uh, it is basically on Earth's surface, only 29% of land is available for this activities, and out of which that 71% land is actually occupied by ocean. From that land surface, 29%, if you see, only 70% is habitable. That means you can live on that, right? Remaining is either in glaciers or in barren land. From that 71% habitable land, 50% is agriculture land, and remaining is in forest and shrubs. So from that 50% agricultural land, we can say it as a habitable or arable land. Agricultural land is actually it's for crop growth and all. Only 23% is there, and 77% is actually occupied by the livestock, right? If this is the condition, then if you see the total land area used for arable farming and grazing in the world, then you can find interesting thing over here. We are the largest arable land in the world. Total area land used for arable farming and grazing, right? So largest arable land in the world we have. Okay, see, Africa is there, but of course it is a group of countries, right? That continent itself is actually having this 4 billion hectares of land, but India alone has a very good share of a land globally, and we have a very good conditions for the farming. Okay, I'll come to that point later. If you see the global share of land used for the arable agriculture, there also more than 75% of land used in India for this arable agriculture. And if you see the world, more than 50% in Asia is actually a share. If you see here, right? So this is the India, right? So more than 75% land we are using for the agricultural practices. And if you think about other countries in Asia Pacific, definitely they are also doing well in this aspect, right? Okay. Then, but if you see the global share of agricultural land per capita, yeah, total land is there, of course. But if you discuss with respect to the land per capita, then definitely it is less in Asia. The reason is population is very high, right? So it is about zero point 0.5 hectares per person, right? 5.5 hectares is basically a global share of agricultural land per capita, I can say. So Asia is actually struggling a bit in this due to a large population, right? Fine. From that land, whatever land we have, if you think about the global share of agricultural land used for a major crops, right? It actually measures in hectares, right? It measures in hectares. So around 700 million hectares land is under the cultivation of cereals only, right? And two more crops is actually coarse grains, and the oil crops are actually doing well after the cereals. The reason behind this is this particular type of crops does not require any special conditions for the growth. But if you see here, which I have encircled here, the pulses, roots, tubers, and the vegetables, fruits, all these needs some special things for the growth and the development. So basically, the share of land utilized for such type of precious crops is very less. Okay, the reason behind this, if you see, then you'll understand that excuse me. Yeah, so it is under the cultivation of pulses and other pulses. Why this is because the first opportunity for this startups to look into particular agricultural sectors. So I would suggest you, actually these are the areas where we can actually push our efforts to grow such kind of things. So need to provide through a new technology to achieve the cost benefit ratio. If you provide a good solutions to this, so now, so how we can achieve good productivity in this? Okay, the problem we understood. Yes, but how we can achieve a good productivity in this particular area? Okay, yeah, good agricultural practices and well planned fertilizer programs can be the solution for achieving good productivity, I believe. Because in Asian countries, they are using more fertilizers. If you see here, we are using more fertilizers than anybody else, right? We are using more fertilizers. Yeah. So China is the world's leader in utilizing the fertilizers. Yeah, there is a definitely advantageous part, because by utilizing a proper fertilizers in a proper quantity, we may get a good quality yield. But at the same time, we are hampering the soil flora and fauna. But at least till today, we are not facing this problem at large. And if you see the fertilizer consumptions per kilogram per hectare of the arable land, then you can easily make out the difference with compared to the other world. We are actually consuming a lot. Okay, and this is the data where we can see the nitrogen, phosphate, and potash consumption. Okay, here also we are leading the world in this particular aspect. Okay, so China leading with more than 364 kg per hectares in world. So there is a scope for next generation fertilizers for the developed countries have already started such programs. Because see, the thing is, developed countries have such programs that they have developed next generation fertilizers. They have proper plan, and they're putting up less fertilizers and getting good output compared to us, right? So there I can see a lot of opportunities for the startups and for the researchers to put their efforts to develop such fertilizers or a methods to give the fertilizers, so that we can reduces the input in the agricultural sector, and we can get the more and more product. Got it? Now, for instance, if I want to give the example for this, then I would give you this global production of cereals. Now the thing is, if cereal production is a good agricultural practices, enhance this record break production. If you see cereal worldwide, in basically in India, in 2019, the cereal productions was more than 290 million metric ton, right? But if you see consumption of fertilizers with countries like US, Canada, Russia, etc., India consumes more but produce less, right? It consumes more fertilizers, but it produces less compared to others, right? So in last slide, we had discussed that okay, US, Russia's are not using fertilizers the extent which we are doing, right? But compared to them, the if you compare that with the productivity, then definitely it is not up to the mark. So there is definitely a loophole where we can actually think about the development, right? Okay. The thing is, the more efficient technique, if you want to provide to plan or to execute next generation fertilizer plans or the fertilizers, then what we can do, we can actually think about the nanotechnological tools, because uh, as I have a expertise, little bit expertise in this particular domain, I've gone through many things, many literatures, and I found that yes, people are now using nanotechnological tools for the improvement of agricultural sector, in order to reduce the consumptions of water, in order to reduce the consumptions of fertilizers. Okay, so many things that they're working for. So this is one of the good what you may say options to go for, right? But still, this field is in juvenile stage. We need to work very really very hard to come to that point where we can really contribute something substantial to it. Okay, then if you see, the basically share of this persons of this working age engaged in any agricultural activities is basically uh, found more in India and in Asia countries, because more than 60% people from India are dependent directly or indirectly on the agriculture, right? So this report is actually published by the World Bank, and uh, they said that the share of labor worldwide employed in agriculture is actually 52%, and two-thirds in Indian population is actually dependent on this. But from previous couple of slides, we can understand countries like China and Canada and Russia are doing well with less labor force actively involved in agribusinesses. If you see here, the labor force which they are using is very very less, right, compared to us, but still they are managed to produce good quality yield. If you see this slide, okay, let us take example of the cereal only. So see here, right? They're doing pretty well, even in less involvement of the human resource in this particular sector. Okay, so I always think why these things are happening, where we are making mistakes, because they switch to automation and next generation agri practices. Next generation agricultural practices they have switched to, because they understood now the traditional methods will no longer be sufficient to provide nourishment to their people. So they just shifted to new technologies, modern technologies, and we are still not up to the mark. We are still doing the agricultural practices in India with a similar fashion. Now it's time to change. So there I can see a lot of scope for the startups in this particular domain, right? Now, despite of this, in this by 2050, if you see here the global agricultural productivity, it's a gap index. You can see there is a required rate of TFP. TFP is basically total factor productivity, which is the ratio measures changes in how efficiently we agricultural we put the inputs in agriculture and get the output from that. So it is a ratio between input and output. Okay, TFP is nothing but the ratio between input and output. So total factor productivity. If you see here, and the required rate of TFP growth would be 1.75% at 2050, right? While the current rate is 1.5 only. And the in developing countries, especially developing countries, low income countries, if you see here, the growth rate is 0.96% only, right? I actually don't want to comment much on this particular thing because we have time to reach to here. We have time here. We can change this scenario. If you check the TFP in 2020 to 2022, here you can find a negligible difference. We can actually manage this. We can actually cover this difference, right? Instead of going here and try to cover, it is very difficult because by that time the the world population will be around 9 billion, and it is really very difficult to handle this condition, I would say, right? So we have a time, so we can change this particular trend in this area, right? um, so if you see, we have a scope to improve in TFP. Since agri-land is decreasing and demand and population is of course increasing, it is necessary to improve in technology for irrigation, for fertilization, utilization, seed utilizations and the improvement programs, then agrochemical utilizations to achieve the good TFP. So you see lot of scope for startups in this particular area. If some startup come into the part of irrigation processes, then fertilization utilization plan if they provide, then definitely farmers would very happy to accept it for the growth and for the increasing their yield. But why this TFP is so important to be considered? Because if you think about 2050, definitely it is going to be a big mess. Beforehand, we need to think seriously about it. Okay, need to change it. Okay, so if you see here, the world's population is expanding and the food production is rising, right? It is expected to rise. So by that time, we'll be requiring 70% more food than today with what we have. Okay, so that productivity will be increased by 70% with less arable land under cultivation. Because by that time, the land for the arable agriculture will also go down, right? Will also go down because the population is increasing. Where they will survive then? Where they will actually live? Okay, so definitely industrialization will be also increases, and land utilizations for that urbanization and industrializations will be more. So with that limited piece of a land, how we can able or how we are able to providing a sufficient amount of good quality food to all the people, 9 billion people, right? So we need to seriously think about it. Now the thing is, if you see here 2020s, yeah, yeah, we have sufficient amount of food. Yeah, currently the productivity is sufficient. We have sufficient amount of food over here, okay, to provide food to world population. But still, food insecurity do exist in society, irrespective of country. कोई भी country, every country is actually facing the same problem, and that because of that affordability issues, then farmers do not like overproductions of one and less production of other type of food stuff, because we don't have a system to understand okay, what extent tomatoes have grown in a Maharashtra or in other state, and what extent the other food commodities are actually growing. So based on that data, we can probably think about our cultivation plan, right? So that plan is missing. So you can see, right, I don't want to like every time comment onto the opportunity of the startups, but you can actually understand how many opportunities are there in this domain, because nobody's working right there, right? So if you are coming with some solution, definitely people will take it, right, happy to take it. If there is no solution, who will come to the market and ask for the solution? You have to develop a solutions, and you have to go there. First of all, you need to find out the problems, right? Many times as a researcher, I can tell you, many times we find a research problems just like that. Yeah, just like that, we just find a problem and we can work on that. We never bother about its feasibility, we never bother about its actual utility. Is it really important to do research in this? Because we are spending a lot of money of our organization, of a government, or any other funding agencies. We are putting our precious time in that. Okay, so in my opinion, whenever we plan any research in any what did they say project, we need to seriously think about its outcome. You know? At least it should be useful for 1 to 2% people in our society. Okay, that is what is important here. um, then of course, even if we have a lot of what do we say food produce every year, let me tell you that we are the largest producer of the food grains. We are the second largest producer of vegetables. We are the third largest producer of milk and milk products. But still, we do not have enough to eat. The condition is not just for India, but worldwide. If you see, 821 million people do not have enough to eat, or 150 million children are stunted in their growth. Nearly about half of all deaths in children under 5 are actually due to the undernutrition, right? So many problems are there. We need to think about, right? So mainly children's under 5 years age of to get severely affected by the food insecurity. So now we can understand that we have a problem with a food insecurity. Yeah, we have enough arable land as of now. We produce a good ample amount of food. That is also not the issue. But the issue is we are not able to protect it. We are not able to secure that particular agricultural produce so that it will be reaching towards each and every individual of the community, right? So that is why these problems have created, these problems have started. And believe me, there are very few people are actually working in this domain to protect the food, to protect the agricultural commodities, different types of products, because every product has its own way to protect, because there is a semi-perishable, perishable, non-perishable type of foodstuffs available. So depending upon the type, we need to plan our strategies. Got it? So due to all such things, I want to tell you this child mortality versus the child vesting report, which is again produced by the World Bank, right? So if you carefully see here, the Asian countries are actually affected by this more, a child vesting, right? We affected more here. Okay, after that African. Okay, but all other world is actually not facing such issues, because they have planned, they have developed their own technologies as per their requirement. Here I would like to mention one more point. We are lacking a customized solutions. We are lacking in this kind of research. We are lacking in applied research. We don't know how to deal with the problems, I guess. Yeah, there are people who are working in this domain like nicely, and they are understanding this problem, and they're putting their 100% efforts to tackle these issues. But still, this is not enough, right? We all should take this problem seriously, and we should work on it. Fine. If you see here, the child mortality is basically a share of newborns who dies before the 5 years of age, and its vesting is basically a ratio of weight and height. Child vesting is what the ratio of weight and height, and it is not up to the mark, right? So we consider the age window here is a 5 years only. Got it? Okay. Now I would like to tell you the problem, where exactly this problem has started. So if you see here, yes, that is a global hunger index reports explains the real conditions of food insecurity throughout Southeast Asia and Africa found to have a severe food insecurity, and so that the hunger, right? So if you see here, yeah, although we have a largest arable land in the world, we are still considering in this particular category serious, right? Right. So in this particular category, we are included in after Africa, right? So we have a largest arable land. We are good climatic conditions, right? We have a good human resource to work on it, but still we are considered in this category. Why? Why? Yes, of course, there is a scope to seriously think about it, right? Okay. If you see here in this slide, if you see the 2019 report of GHI, Global Hunger Index, basically, South Asia and Africas are not doing well, right? And Indian ranks here, Indian ranks in this particular category is actually 102, like 102nd out of 117 qualifying countries in this particular score. So the score is around 30.3. It means more than 30% population of country do not have enough to eat, in spite of having largest arable land and good productivity in the world. So I'm not saying that we are not producing well. We have a good productivity. In last slides, we had discussed that enough, right? So we have a very good productivity, but still we are not able to provide our population well. So why? So I think due to food insecurity, simple. As agri-tech, it is a huge domain, but I would like to draw your attention to one of the leading problem in agricultural technology, that is food protection. Okay, so it is a huge domain. I don't want to comment much on every aspect, but I would like to take you to a particular problem, and I'll try to finish my presentation with the solution of at least one problem. Right? I'll try to do that here. So as I mentioned that the productivity is not a big issue in Asian and African countries, but the sustainability is the issue. It is important to be noticed. So where the problem is food loss and food waste around the world, right? If you see here, the food loss you can experience in post-harvest, pre-harvest, processing, and distributing chains. So we are lacking in that domains. We are actually struggling in the post-harvest, pre-harvest, processing, and distribution chains, right? And that is why we are actually lost of food here. Around 40% of food we lost during this chain. Here you can see, and due to which the demand for quality and quantity of food has increased, right? We are not able to protect our food, so automatically demand will increase, right? The reasons are there: population explosion and poverty is there. We cannot do from research anything for particular this problem, but of course natural disasters or calamities, somehow we can use a modern technology to tackle these problems and say our food. We can sense that yes, natural disasters are arriving. We can manage something, right? We can prepare ourselves to stop that particular wastage. Okay, and the most important part which I want to discuss over here is a food spoilage, where we can manage many things by providing solution through research, and the same can be commercialized through startups. Okay, so I would like to focus more on this aspect. Okay, we are now narrowing this problem. We are going deeper in this problem, and we'll try to find out the solution through nanotechnological tools, which I understood personally from my research. So for a food spoilage, I can see the factors responsible for this is biotic, abiotic, and the intrinsic. This is very fundamental thing if you see. But again, for understanding and research, I'll be concentrating on this biotic factor. This is a biotic factor because moisture is one of the major issue in food stability, because due to which bacteria, fungus, and other biotic factors will grow and spoil the food. Okay, where we lose our food, it seems very interesting here. If you see here, we have produced a lot, right? And this is a food pipeline where you can see pre-processing, transport, storage, packaging, and preservation, processing, marketing, and eventually consumers will get only limited food product, right? Why? Because at every point we are losing our food like anything. We don't have really solutions to prevent it. Very few solutions we have to prevent it, right? So in this particular presentation, I would like to concentrate more on transport and storage, because the major ports and even packaging also, these three aspects are actually interrelated. I'll tell you how. Because in these three areas we are losing our food like anything. Okay, the problem with the storage you can see here, right? I told you we have produced more than 200, and this is old data, right? In this chart, more than 290 million metric ton grains, but we have only 90 million metric ton capacity to store food, right? Rest of the things we are just putting outside the what do you say, that store warehouses and storehouses. If moisture gets into it, definitely it can damage this, it can spoil it, right? Okay, so with this line, I would like to mention a few points over here. That food loss costing the world economy about $750 billion every year. But worldwide, India and China, these are the worst. What you can say? These are the two countries responsible for a major loss, which is about 1.3 billion tons of food every year. Right? Okay. So here it is. Let us look into this the previous slide, that we understand that food gets spoiled, which will ultimately affects the global food security index, which eventually increases the cost of food, right? As food is not available, then definitely it will affect the food security index. Then food inflation will be the problem, right? If food is not available, definitely that prices will go up like anything, and that affordability comes into picture. This is the Asian Food Security Index, where affordability index of our country is 64.2, availability score is 58.4. So definitely it is not good. We have to improve it, right? Now I'll come to the problem statement here. The problem of this agricultural sectors in this particular domain is food security. What we can understand out of it, the food security is nothing but the availability, stability, utilization, and accessibility of the food. As we understood that stability, that availability is not the issue, because we have right, produced it in a good amount. If you see here, okay, the stability has three aspects: production, storage, and distribution. Production, we have enough. If you're not able to store it properly, you're not able to give the product to them. Like, availability will be the issue. If availability is not there, then utilization will be the issue, right? And if utilization and accessibility is not there, then it will affect definitely distribution chain of the food, right? So here the most important thing where we need to concentrate on is storage, right? So when you produce the food stuff, you have to store it in a right way. right? You have to protect it. Then there is a packaging and preservation aspect of the storage. Packaging and preservation aspect of this process, storage. Fine. So we would like to concentrate more on yeah. So we'll concentrate more on the packaging aspect. Packaging aspect here. Fine. See. So these are the traditional methods of food storage. You know what? When anybody starts doing research in any field, they'll first get an idea and they start working on it in the laboratory. People usually say that, okay, if I put my time, maximum time in the laboratory, I'll do better result or good research. I'll able to produce a good quality, what you can say, solutions. But I think differ in this because before understanding the current scenarios, if you want to go for a research, noticed. So before going for any kind of research and development stuff, you need to understand the traditional methods of food storage. So here in this particular aspect, we have a glass, metal, plastic, paper, and paperboard packaging materials we have been using from a decades to protect our food. There are preservation methods, but I don't want to go into that. But there are loopholes in the traditional methods, that barrier properties are not good, which results into food loss. Sometimes the quality is good, barrier properties are good, but these are expensive. So affordability is the issue. So ultimately, that food product will not get, or that people who are actually comes under poverty line, below poverty line, they will actually not go for these kind of stuffs. If you see the short shelf life of the food, then definitely these traditional packaging systems are not doing well for maintaining this shelf life of the food. Again, it will affect the availability. Then sometimes it may negatively interact with the food stuff, that may alter the nutritive value, and that may damages the quality and what do we say, organoleptic properties of the food, right? Sometimes if you put some fillers for the functionality, increase the functionality of the packaging system, then migration is the issues, leakage is the issues, which may create a health issues, right? And finally, the economic loss leads to an food inflation. So all things are interrelated that we need to understand first before going for any solution, right? Okay. So from all this discussion, what I understood is, what I've drawn some problem statement was, surplus farm output but inferior storage facility leads to food insecurity. We know that, right? So we have a surplus output, but we don't have storage facility, good quality storage facilities to secure our food. Spoilage in packaged food products due to deficient packaging methods. Okay, in any industry, food industries, there is a packaging unit, but very few times they are able to do it properly. Because see, I'm not say what do they say, giving the negative feedback on packaging systems of FARC and this industries. But yes, I personally found that some dairy products, when I purchased a milk, and if I keep it aside, within 1 hour it will get spoiled. Why? Because it is pasteurized, but still it is spoiled. Why? Because that during the packaging system, during the packaging process, we are not taking proper precautions, and that packaging system itself is not sufficient enough to tackle these problems like pathogen interactions and growth. Okay, then lack of spoilage detection technique leads to a major economic loss. The third point I would like to explain more about this, because uh, instead of solving this problem after getting that spoilage related organisms or responsible organisms into the food, instead of that, if you could understand, if you could recognize the conditions beforehand, you can actually protect our food. Okay, so here we are, possibilities of nanotechnology in agricultural tech. Nanotechnology is basically technology of dimensions, I would say, because the material which comes in the range of 10 raised to minus 9 meter is considered as a nanomaterial. Why it is so special to be used these things in particular applications here is that nanomaterials changes its property when the sizes get changed, right? That property change we utilized here for the betterment of our sectors, right? So in the nano food, we have agriculture, processing, products, nutrition, everything. From the agricultural thing, we have number of scopes and opportunities here. New pesticides we can develop, targeted genetic engineering, especially gold nanoparticles we can use for making transgenic plants. Then identity preservation also we can manage with this. Agrochemical delivery assail, then sensors to monitor soil conditions. Yes, one of the important applications I want to mention over here is sensors to monitor the soil conditions, because very few farmers are actually utilizing or actually going for analysis of their soil before putting any fertilizers into it. Okay, so nanotechnology keeps the promise to deliver such kind of products. So researchers, students can think about it. You can actually do research and try to don't stop at that doing research and just publishing papers and patents, but try to make it commercialized. Because if you provide that technology to the people, definitely they'll be happy to get it and put it into their basket, right? Then in the processing, nano encapsulation, flavor aromas, gelation, nano emulsions, anti-caking, sanitization of the equipment. So this is the list, right? And many more applications are there still. I've just introduced you this field. That is why I'm just putting one picture over here. But it is a huge thing. So instead of just discussing about listing about the applications, I would like to specifically go on to one or two applications where I can show you how exactly this process will be beneficial for us, right? So in this presentation, I have selected this antimicrobial product development and this contaminant sensor. So we have developed this in order to protect our food, in order to safeguard our food. Got it? See here, APNCs, right? Wait, yeah. Hello. Mukesh?
Sir, yes, sir. You are audible, sir. No problem, sir.
Hello. Yeah.
Hello.
So yeah, here in my hand, I have a APNCs and IPNCs based technologies. So we have developed this. Okay, these films are basically antimicrobial. The traditional packaging methods are actually it is having a problem. Antimicrobial packaging is actually a very good alternative for the traditional packaging methods, which can deliver uh, good functional what do you say alternatives for the traditional one. It can kill all the spoilage responsible bacteria and the fungus, especially yeast, that I will going to tell you. Then one more thing I have here is hold on. Yeah, there it is. Yeah, there it is. So, I don't know. Yeah. So these are the sensors which we have developed here with the help of nanotechnology. So the whole idea is, if you put this, obviously it is developed on microcontroller, and it is actually connected with the IoT base. So if something goes wrong with the food packets, it will intimate you and the drivers maybe in transport, or that storekeepers if it is in storage, and this information will be passed down to that concerned person, so that he will come and try to protect it, right? So in the next slides, I'll try to give you that details, right? Yes. So here it is. So here The PET is the traditional packaging films which we use, but it is not a functional. So to make it functional, what we did was we have just coated that with the EVA, okay, ethyl vinyl acetate, and on top of that we have just sprayed a material, nanomaterials, right? And this is the assembly for the nanosensors that we will discuss in subsequent slides. So for food stuff, food packaging, we know that food get packaged in the primary package first, okay, which is basically made up of cans, the flexible sheets, and the wrappers. The secondary package, all that primary packages will go into the secondary packages, which is made up of cardboard cartons and boxes, and all the secondary packages, chota chota wala, that will go into the tertiary package, which is made of pellets, right? So we are going to concentrate on these aspects like primary packages and the tertiary packages. Okay. So in the previous slide, I showed you that antimicrobial thing we have used for the primary package as a primary package so that it will be coming in contact with the uh, material, food material, and it can kill if there is a pathogens, if there is a spoilers present in it. Then tertiary packages is basically intelligent packaging which can sense the moisture seepage and tell uh, that concerned person that something is wrong, go and check. Okay. So what is composites? Polymer nanocomposites. Basically, there are fillers. Then food grade polymers we take, we incorporate that into that polymers, and we'll get the nanocomposites. Basically, this is again percentage dependent because this activities you have to optimize that percentage, right? And the methodologies you need to plan. So we can make active and intelligent PNCs out of it, right? So there are obviously some reports available already developing these PNCs, but again, there are certain limitations to it that we need to overcome before going into the market, right? So this is the current status of this field for the active PNCs, and obviously some people have developed the intelligent PNCs, but of course I told you that there are certain limitations, there are certain lacunas in the research where low barrier properties, then brittleness of this nanocomposite. If you put more nanofillers into it, agglomeration of the nanofiller into the polymer. Sometimes when you put nanofillers into the polymer, it will get coagulate and agglomerate in the one place. So that will not be acceptable. The less sensitive and expensive intelligence systems are available in the market. Basically, that you cannot really use for countries like developing countries applications. So you need to go for a better cost-effective alternatives through your research, right? So we have a lot of scope in this particular domain. If you would like to continue with this, definitely like our institute, like Krishna and other institutes are also there in Maharashtra, which are supporting this kind of activities. Yeah. So reaction conditions and flow. So after understanding this, the most important thing is reaction, that raw material, how to create that material, which nanoparticle I should go for, okay, in what specification I should look forward for. So such type of chemical reactions we need to plan, right? Such type of chemical reactions, okay, what application I'm looking at, okay, then what size and shape I want, what is the chemical behavior I'm interested in. So all these parameters, if you think, then you can probably think about the designing some reactions, right? So there is no standard protocol for nanomaterial synthesis. You have to design your own as per your requirement, right? And that's the research component of it, right? Okay, it takes a lot of time to think about like what will happen if I change the concentration of precursors, what will happen if I decrease or increase the temperature. Okay, so all such parameters we need to consider while designing these kind of stuff, right? Here I have just mentioned one container, right? Can you see here in this corner? So basically this container is a stainless steel autoclave, teflon coated stainless steel autoclave. This is designed for the particles which we are interested, right? These are customized container we have designed because we wanted to get the particles which I'm going to tell you and show you how that particles are. To design that particles, we have actually customized designs here, but I actually want to tell you that uh, we were facing a problem to create this customized vessel because very few people were ready to give this kind of stuff. right? So there is a lot of scope for engineer people, those who can fabricate these things. Okay, so many people wanted to have their own customized vessels, customized designs, but due to a lack of what you can say or availability, less availability of such kind of startups or companies, they are not able to get it, right? So here also we can see some opportunities. After synthesis of nanomaterials, the characterization is most important, because without understanding that material is, you cannot really go for the application. So standard methods are there, like X-ray diffractions and the UV visible spectroscopy, field emission, scanning electron microscopy, or the TEM, and one more important thing, if you are using it for the human benefit, or in relation with the living forms, then you need to check a biocompatibility testing. If your application is outside the body, or something related to electronic stuff and all, you don't have to go for biocompatibility testing. In that case, you have a different set of tests that you need to perform, right? But in this particular case, since it is in association with the food, we need to go for a biocompatibility testing. Okay, so these are how we can get the results of materials, right? So it actually gives you that structural information about a material which we synthesize, right? It can give you the optical properties of the material, spectroscopy. Yeah, very interesting thing. The efficient properties, right? Basically, it is a picture. It is an image of efficient scanning electron microscopy, which tells you what structure it has and what is the size of it, right? And what you can do with that. So believe me, we have planned these structures. Huh? We have planned the structures. We actually wanted to have the structure because we wanted to fix that particles onto the this one, PET polymer, right? Food grade polymer. So we wanted to have the flat surface. We wanted to have the particles with the pores so that it can increases the surface area. So we have designed that protocol, right? So it took around 1.5 years to design it. Then again, for sensor applications, we have designed these particles because we wanted to have a more surface area so that whenever that water sift into it, it can get it and produce the results. Okay, these are the transmission biocompatibility disaster. I don't want to put more time on it. This is just the information where you can initially you can find it out whether it is good for human beings or not. Then after that, we need to go for understanding how exactly it is applicable over a particular microorganisms. We have selected these organisms and we found very good initial results where we believe that that's whatever we synthesize will definitely have a good applications on the side. Okay. Then these are the results, zone of inhibitions, and this is the quantitative assay, because that was just a qualitative assay where we can find out whether it is inhibiting or not. But this is a quantitative assay where you can see this is yeah, this is control, right? And when we increase the concentration of material in each well, it is affecting the growth. You can see that growth, right? Yes. Then we have just analyzed the particles which we used here. Okay, how efficient it was. Then we found out the MIC and MBC of this, and we found that 250 μg per ml is the perfect concentrations for uh, bacteria and the funguses which usually grow in foodstuff and spoil that foodstuff. So 250 μg per ml is the standard, what you can say, the concentrations which we got as effective concentrations to be used in our applications. So this is the first product which we developed here, right? These are the real images. You know, continuous distributions you can see on it. These are microscopic images. Then these are optical properties, right? Where you can understand this PET EVA is a normal film where you can see this kind of peaks. But with the help of, after putting up nanomaterials, you can see extra peaks over here, somewhere here, right? And that is what is essential for our application. Then we have tested that polymers on this organisms, and we found that percent inhibition. So it is doing pretty well. It is another validation now. right? Second applications we developed here was electrochemical nanosensor, right? So this was just, I showed you that sensor. Here we have used biomaterial, and we incorporated that biomaterial into it. Yes, of course, I cannot disclose everything here, but definitely this will give you insight how to go about it. Got it. So this was the result of that biocomposite we got, right? So conductivity was increased. The second sensor we also developed here, which I would like to tell you after this presentation. I'll show you. I have that, right? So on the capacitance, I have developed that. So one more thing I want to tell you. See, it doesn't matter from which background I'm. If it is important to solve the problem, I must learn at least fundamental things. I should not say that, no, I'm from biotechnology background. I should not look into the electronics. I should not look into the polymer chemistry or nanotechnology, right? As a science person, as a researcher, you have to go ahead and take that challenges to produce some solutions, some substantial solutions to the problem, right? Okay, so this was the result I got, which was very sensitive, and I'm happy to share this. The sensors which we developed here is sensitive for 200 microliter water. Even 200 microliter, if it sips into the tertiary packet, food material is inside that tertiary packet. So there is a secondary and then there is a primary. So before it reaches to the food material, even 200 microliter, if it touches to the tertiary package, it will give you indication. You just go and check and protect your food, right? Right. So this is the sensitivity. So what opportunities I'll be talking about this agri-tech startups. India has more than 450 agri-tech, and global of total, if you see in the world, there are 3,100 startups, reported startups I'm talking about. The storage monitoring based on the Internet of Things is the very good opportunity. I'm telling you. Just I told you, the storage monitoring, like what kind of food stuff it is. If that food gets spoiled, how you will come to know? After opening that packet, you will come to know about it, right? So can we do something for this so that that packaging itself is intelligent to tell you whether the food inside is good or bad? Yes, there is a chance to actually go ahead. Obviously, this application, I'm not talking about DMarts and this one regular use. I'm just talking about these applications for the soldiers, like Indian troops, those who are working in different territories, right? And they have a different, what you can say, demands or requirements, right? So climatic conditions are different. So everywhere, if you want to provide that food material in a, particular that natural forms, we need to process that, right, with some technology. Traditional technology will not solve this problem. So we need to seriously think about it. Okay. So then digitizations of the mandis, like we don't know like how mandis is actually work. It is again a manual thing. Farmer producer organization must declare that yes, the 10% of farmers now this year is going to produce tomatoes, 50% of farmers are going to produce okra. So that kind of platform is not there. So farmers are not really understood okay, what crops they should go for. So emerging areas like market linkages, then digital agriculture, better access to inputs and financial, the gaining interactions. So it's actually area of interest for the startups. So we need to bridge that gap somewhere to basically from produce to the market, whatever whatever things are coming, we need to connect that somewhere, right? The creating direct market linkages through digital platforms such as NinjaCart and Farms. Yes, you might be aware about it, right? So such platforms we need to develop, and there is again a lot of opportunity for the computer science guys, those who can think uh, different, what you can say, different way of contribution to the agricultural sectors. They can go for it. What about challenges for the agriculture startups? Basically, these are the few points which you can find it easily on the internet, and everybody is actually talking about this. The most important point which I would like to highlight as a challenge for the agri-tech startup is novelty and feasibility of idea, right? if it is not novel and feasible, and if it is not incashable idea, then definitely nobody will come up into invest into your startups. So investment and financial management, obviously, we need to uh, like go for some other agencies to get this knowledge, because I'm not expert in this particular area, so I don't want to comment anything on this. Then yes, we should aware about the PS competition, then sustainability of the business, then suitable human resource. We need to find who can actually take a responsibilities, come up and take that challenge and produce the results, right? So choosing that suitable human resource is very very important here, right? Then market analysis, customer satisfaction is of course there. Without that, you cannot do well in the market, right? So thank you guys, thank you very much. I actually see my agriculture will produce of my country and the world one day like this. So now we are facing problem everywhere, but if you use current age technologies and if you have a better plan, one day we'll definitely have happiness, right? So thank you guys. Thank you very much for your attention, and thank you very much for giving me this wonderful opportunity. Mukesh,
Hello, sir. Hello.
any question?
Participants can ask the question.
The second sensor which I wanted to show you is this. Okay, so this is the capacity sensor. Believe me, this paper we have developed. The cost of this sensor is not more than 1 rupees, and the market available sensor is around 250 rupees per sensor. So see the difference. So we have to take a challenge. We have to take a responsibility of problems for the problems which we have in our country or nearby countries, and we should really go for providing the solutions, right? So it should be a collective effort, right? So I'll be happy to answer all your questions.
If any participant want to ask the question to Dr. Jain, can ask. So I think the presentation was very like informative. Nobody want to ask any question.
Thank you, sir.
Sir, very great session by you. You have introduced agriculture from its inception, its importance. You also introduced the technology into the agriculture, Indian agriculture status worldwide, next generation technology, and automation. You introduce a startup associated with this agri-tech, and you attract the attention of audience towards the serious issue like food wastage and food security. The startup ideas which you have suggested are wonderful, and I hope these ideas will be beneficial for our audience participants. Very thankful, sir. I am very thankful for you. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. Thank
Dear participants, now we have another session by Miss Renu Thaplial. Miss Renu Thaplial done his MSc in mathematics from HNB Garhwal Central University. She has been working independently and providing the service to the young minds through Tech Counselor. She is also associated with Kaviraj Foundation. The foundation work in environment and education. Miss Renu is also a interactive program coordinator in this event. His expertise in marketing strategies, planning, coordinate of the program. Now I am handovering the mic to Miss Renu Thaplia. Back to you.
Thank you, sir. Am I audible?
Yeah.
Thank you so much, sir, for this wonderful opportunity. And I am very thankful, Dr. Simbal, for initiating the program and for collaborating with the counselor team. I am also very thankful to Dr. Pawar for such a wonderful, insightful, detailed presentation and for your words and your valuable time. You have explained such a complex topic on nanotech and its application for agri-tech in a simple and innovative way. I'm sure this will very helpful for our audience. Now, so today we are about to conclude this journey, which we started on 20th June with 15 plus experts from national and international reputed organization with an aim to provide a platform to share the industry insight on core tech domain, including engineering, biomedical, environment, IoT, solar, IPR, communication, etc. We had planned this event in collaboration with our organizers, co-organizers, and sponsors. Tech Counselor, with an aim to foster R&D and R&I ecosystem, is working on the philosophy of empowering ideas and innovations. In fact, it is our core vision and mission to bridge out the gap between industry and academia by supporting such activities. Now, I will just briefly put about Tech Counselor, which will give insight to all our audience how we have been impacting or working in research, innovation, and development by collaborating with different organizations and individuals. We started this journey in 2013 and official get listed as a private limited company in December 2018 as R2E Technologies Private Limited. In just 18 months, we have grown as a well recognized startup company. Tech Counselor has always focused on the technology development for societal impact and have believed that our aim should be to make India a global R&D hub. So these are our contact details, and if you have any query and want to contact to us, then you are feel free to contact us. This is the journey of Tech Counselor from October 2013. We are as an unregistered firm. December 2018, Tech Council listed as a private limited company and named as a R2E Technologies Private Limited. In this journey, we have filed trademarked under 35 and 42 class. We have supported 3 international conferences, 1 national conference, 10 plus R&D projects. Also, we have collaborated with 5 companies, 4 NGOs. In 2019, we have signed we have signed NDA with NOAM Canada and with Tulaz Institute Dehradun. Also, we have supported them in their 2 research projects. Uh, in this, we also get recognized by Government of India and Government of Uttarakhand as a startup company. In June 2019, we have filed our first patent, and in October, we have filed our second patent, Rahi. And in 2020, we are going to support NIT Silchar in their international conference, and we also awarded by a Young Scientist Award to one of our paper by Uttarakhand Council, Government of Uttarakhand. Also, we also have 2 more trademarks, Disha and Avni. Sorry, as we are running out of time, so I'll be just going through the presentation to quick overview, since we are also have to conduct an exam post this presentation. And I will request to all participants if they are having any query and would like to collaborate with us or would like to connect, then feel free to connect us at any time. So Our competitive advantages are the digital platform, the R&D prospect, a strong team, and network. We we follow the three-step approaches like research, innovation, and digital. Our services, our core domain is edutech, in which we provide services in research, education, engineering, and environment. With ideation to innovation, engineering and research, entrepreneurship skilling, R&D, and intellectual property like digitization and social support. And our core philosophy is on research and innovation. We provide the solution to every organization, companies under our initiatives Avni, Disha, and Tech Counselor. These are our clients to whom we supported in their website development projects, engineering consultancy, or international conference supported, in which NIT Silchar, which is the ongoing program, we are going to support them in their international conference on control, embedded, and robotics in October 2020. So the innovation and research by the Tech Counselor have supported 10 plus products and prototypes. We have filed 2 company patents and 4 individual patents, 4 trademarks, and 5 plus. We have 5 plus technical partners. The business model followed by the Tech Counselor is 4P model: place, product, price, and promotion. For strategy, we are following 3C and 3P model. For vision, we are following 3Q model. Our focus is to make India a global R&D hub by creation of IPs and technologies. These are some steps and our goals we are working on, like prototype product, networking under the initiative of Avni, research and IPR, and Tech Council want to develop the innovative ecosystem, women entrepreneurship, incubation centers under, and digital branding. And I'm very thankful to our team member. These are our core team members. Thank you so much. And to our advisory board who always here to help us or advise to Tech Counselor. These are some of our presence, our participations in many conferences, in programs and summits. These are our presence in events supported by us, research intervention, and these are the this year highlight which was achieved by the Tech Counselor. Like we are supporting the NIT Silchar as a technical partner, supporting Bordering India and the IT University as a technical partner. We are awarded by the Young Scientist Award, and we launched the Ramanujan Academy and the trademark of Avni. Our contribution for the society during the COVID pandemic. So that's all from my side. Thank you so much. Now handing over the session to Mr. Mukesh. Symbol sir, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here now.
Yes, sir.
Thank
Handing
you.
over the session to Mukesh. Okay, thank you so much, sir.
Thank you, Renu ma'am.
Hello.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, thank you so much, sir. I think we are like running out of time also, but parallelly, I firstly thanks to my audience and to Dr. Pawar for this for his presentation, and then to Renu also for briefly explaining about Tech Counselor, how we have been done, and how we are doing the work to foster the R&D ecosystem. We have slightly changed one thing, like the link which was supposed to be activated by 3 by 2:30 will be activated at 3 p.m. because of the time we just have changed. we'll be making it live in 3 p.m. and then we'll be activated till 4 p.m. So, firstly, I'm very much thankful to the last team, to the Tech Counselor team, Krishna Institute of Medical Science team to be university, and then to Uttarakhand Technical University, Kaviraj Foundation, Yuvana Tech and Craft Private Limited, Bodhik Ventures, Swachhnir, and to the all supporters. Many thanks to Dr. Semwal, especially to you, because without your support, I'm sure it would have been not possible to have such a lengthy and such a detailed program for the whole month. And then to
Yes, sir.
Miss Silkijan ma'am, the director for the class, to Archana, to Raghav Gasak, Dr. Garg, and to all the Tulas team who have been there to continuously support us. Also, many thanks to Renu, Ritesh, Pranka, Monica, Ajit, Vinay from the Tech Counselor team, and additionally to my the whole team members who have been there throughout the time with branding as well as with creating the flyers or like through sharing the information. Uh, we have received constant support from Dr. Sureshji Bhosle sir, who is the Honorable Chancellor and Chairman of the Krishna Institute, Dr. M.V. Ghorpade sir, who is the Registrar at Krishna Institute of Medical Science, DIMTB University, Dr. D.K. Agrawal, Additional Director of Research, and to Dr. Jayant Pawar. Uh, I'm again we started that program in I think on 20th of June and then till 15th of July like today. Many of the session we have done on YouTube and many on the like Facebook and then some on the GoToMeeting. We have received almost 1200 plus queries for the program, and out of that, 180 plus participants have registered for the program, and we have got almost 10,000 plus views on the Facebook for this program, and 2,500 plus views on the YouTube to the lectures which was given by various experts. To the experts, we had almost 15 plus experts who were like from various organizations, reputed organizations from national and international organizations. I'm very much thankful to all of them. I'll name some of them like Dr. Fabio Messi, who is the technical director and R&D manager at IRIDRA, and also the vice president for the global wetland technology from Italy. Uh, sorry, to Mr. Madan Kanala, who is the founder and CEO at SNOM Incorporation at Ottawa, Canada. Then to C. Prasad, who is the data scientist at Insofi Education, Hyderabad. To Dr. Raman Sharma, who is the senior scientist at CSR Niri, Delhi. To many thanks, one of my very good friend and mentor, Dr. Rajkumar Haldar, CEO and founder at Tribunal Biomedical OPC Private Limited, New Delhi. To very senior professor, Professor Manoj Kumar Panda, who is the professor at Govind Ballabh Pant Institute of Engineering and Technology, Pori Garhwal. To Mr. Naveen Kumar, who is the research engineer at Institut de Recherche Technologies at France, Mr. Abhishek Gupta, research engineer at ELHU, non-profit at Hungary EU Lab, to Vinay Chaudhary sir, who is the assistant professor at University of Petroleum and Energy Studies, Uttarakhand, Dehradun. Again, very much thankful to you, Dr. Semwal, for taking session also in between the program, and to Mr. Saurabh Trivedi, who is the founder and director at Bodhik Ventures Private Limited, New Delhi. Also, I'm very much happy to announce that Bodhik Ventures will be providing support for the trademark. If any of the audience want to have it, yes, you can please always communicate with us for that part. Many thanks to Mr. Ajit Kumar Yadav, who is the researcher at NASA ISRO project, a joint initiative on NISAR, and then also the founder for Ramanujan Academy of Science and Technology. We had one session from Ms. Sakshi Gupta also. I'm very much thankful to you, ma'am, for taking out your time. And also to Mohan sir, a very senior ICT consultant with having 4+ decade of experience and chair for the ACM Chennai, former editor for IEEE, IC newsletter. Very much thank you, sir, for joining us. To Mr. Yasodhan sir also, who is the senior technical research advisor and an independent industry consultant from Maharashtra. To Uday V. Mittal, who is the part of Tech Counselor team and have been supporting us on various R&D projects. Today we had Dr. Jayant Pawar and Ms. Renu. Thank you, both of you, for taking out your valuable time. Other than these experts, we also had received around 7 presentations from the participants who were interested in sharing their ideas and views, out of which 2 experts were selected by the committee for presentation during the session. One was explained by Mohan sir, and he briefly explained on IEEE role for the entrepreneurship and for association, and have also given a very brief insight about the organization, how they are working to foster the R&D work culture. Yesterday, we had Rasri ma'am, who is the associate professor at Krishna Institute of Medical Science, Deemed to be University at Maharashtra, and she had said a brief presentation on her patented technology, which was like on how injection devices can work toward the societal benefit. So I'm like almost I'm very much thankful to all these guys who have been with us for the whole program, and to foster this R&D work culture and tech driven startup, we have been planning that kind of event. And when we first organized our event on 16th of May, a one day international webinar, we did not anticipated that we'll be having such a good number of response and will be requested by the participant to organize this kind of event. Throughout the session, we have received a very wonderful feedback. You can say almost 500 plus QA from online chats as well as on the offline mode. We have received very wonderful attendance also. So I'm very much thankful to all these efforts, which was done by Tulas, Tech Counselor team, UTU, Krishna Institute of Medical Science, and then to the sponsors like Yuvana, Ramanujan Academy, Kaviraj Foundation, and additionally, like the members who have been continuously working throughout the time to make this a wonderful, successful event. So, from my team and from the whole Tech Counselor team, I again thanks to the Tulas and to whole people. Now, before we make the link live for the attendance, this will be activated at 3 and will remain activated till 4. Link is like tiny.cc/webinar 1572. This link will be activated at 3 p.m. and then will remain till 4 p.m. You all guys are requested to put your uh, attendance as well as the examination. Based on that, Tulas Institute will be issuing the certificates, and the organization co-organization will be checking out how things are going on. So in 15 minutes, we'll be making the link live. So I request now Dr. Samuel to have his concluding remark for the session. And uh, thank you so much, sir. Handing over to you.
Thank you, Mukesh. Thank you for your support. I personally thank to Tech Counselor team. I also thankful for TQ3 for this sponsorship for this event, and all our experts which gives the valuable talk on this event. So I am very thankful to participants also. They have patiently listening our talk since 1 month. So I am thankful for all the participants and audience. Thank you, Mukesh.
Thank you so much, sir. So I think we will have this session till next 5 minutes. If anybody want to have any questions, if anybody want to ask something, we are open for the round for the whole month QA. Also, we will be taking all the questions. Right, sir? Can we do it like for the 5 minutes so that people can
Yeah,
also write down the
sure,
link?
sure.
Yeah.
If anybody has any doubt regarding the event and like certification and all, we can clear that.
Yeah, Karma sir, thank you so much. And to Deepak sir also for inviting him.
Yes.
Yes, we to few of the participants whose name I remember because they have constantly been with us and have been asking questions like Karma sir. Then we had Mr. Anuj, we had Jikme, we had San, then we have Rasi ma'am. We also had Ashish Patel. Uh, like Ayush Agrawal was also with us for asking questions. Mr. Ritesh, he's one of our team member who is in China and have been supporting us uh, to like to our moderator like Samuel sir was always with us, and then to Miss Monica and Priyanka. Then we had Yadav sir who have been with us throughout the time. So
We have several participants from
we are
Bhutan
open for
and
the QA
Nepal
round. If
also,
anybody
and
anyone
I'm
want to
very
ask
thankful.
something, yeah,
Yes, I'm very thankful to
yes.
Deepak sir that he has like promoting this event into Nepal and Bhutan also.
Okay, so I was not aware about Deepak sir, but yes, I was hearing his name throughout the time. Thank you, Deepak sir.
Yeah.
from our side.
Yeah.
So I think we have received some comments.
Yeah.
So what we can do is, sir, I think because in our question and answer round also we have much information by the participant. Can we open it right now? It's 2:45. By that way, participant will be able to fill some information, and then we'll close it at 3:45 or at 4. What do you say?
It's fine, sir. Fine. This window will be open. I think
Okay.
for 15 minutes also. Yeah.
Yes, sir. Yes.
Using me now. I think we have a question. Sir.
Okay. Yes, sir. I have screen share mode on. Sir, can you just read it out?
Uh, Sir, I have a question in this exam based on this session. Other question.
All questions will be based on the sessions, more toward focus on IPR, on water, and then on this like biomedical engineering domain. Also, we have put startup, like how startup works, what is startup, and that kind of thing. Most of the questions will be relevant to the 20 plus sessions which you might have taken during the time. And additionally, they are like MCQ based questions. You can put the answers and then you can just
We have the question regarding the previous session also, which we have delivered in last
answer,
1
and then
month.
results will be shown at the same time. Yes, sir. So the whole program we have done under the Virtual Network of Indians, AVNI, an initiative of Tech Counselor, and my sincere thanks to the class team and to the Tech Counselor. So I think, sir, we'll open the examination link.
Yeah.
Uh,
So
I'll just activate it from my end. Yeah. So we have activated the link for the online examination, and it will remain activated till 4 o'clock.